I want to know how bees make their honeycombs such hexagons. This might end up just turning into a video about how awesome bees are, though, so let's just look into bees. I wonder if I should phrase this question differently. Why are bees' honeycombs hexagonal? Isodiametric cells? This looks like a term I should have learned in geometry. Okay, well, it looks like they are still trying to figure out exactly why the shape is the hexagonal. It looks like the general explanation now is that they build cylindrical cells that turn into hexagonal prisms later in the process, but it seems like there's a lot of wiggle room in the middle there for explanations to happen. Okay, so in this abstract, he's gonna talk about it in the article, which does that not defeat the point of an abstract, sir? Okay, let's look somewhere else. This person makes an interesting point. If you used any other kind of shape, like a circle or a triangle, there would be gaps in between the honeycomb spaces. So hexagon is the only shape that works to like not leave any gaps in between spaces, in between cells. This is reminding me of that video GCP Gray did on why hexagons are the bestagons. Why are the fonts on all these websites so small? Wait, why is this 1 to 2 hours? Also, this might be below my grade level a little bit. Interesting. So that person made that point earlier that if you did triangles or squares or circles, there would be space in between. I mean, circles for sure would have a little space in between, but triangles and squares can be stacked. Look at these perfectly stacked shapes, and you could just build these out, and that would be, hey, good point. Why aren't all the shapes just like random little squiggles? Bees they can make more than one cell at a time. The point they're making here is that if you make a squiggle cell, the next bee that is going to build a cell would have to wait until the first one is finished to start building, which I feel like doesn't really track because if you're both building a cell at the same time, you're going to get some squiggles. Like if you're just putting one bee puts some stuff here, the next bee just puts stuff right next to it, and then you just continue building. I feel like that would evolve a natural squiggle, but this is saying that everybody's working. They do this collectively, simultaneously, and constantly. So they're all building cells at the same time, independently of each other, equally spaced. Oh, by the way, isodiametric means roughly spherical or polyhedral. How does that work? How do bees build honeycomb in the first place? This is something I don't know that I would like to know and understand. Hold on, let me finish this first article. The points you're making are real bad. This is actually funny. I feel like this whole article is just bad. Are the insides of the cells not spherical? Because this diagram is showing, oh, the spheres would have little gaps in between, but I'm pretty sure if you were to look at the actual honeycomb, you can zoom in here. Are these not just circles with the spaces filled in the middle? They're not. I think they might actually have a point. So I was kind of just assuming that, you know what I'll bet happens? I have a hypothesis. According to that first guy, cells are just the bees making cylindrical shapes and then kind of sculpting them afterwards. So I'll bet what happens is the bees make these circular cells and then attach them all together. And once they're attached, they sculpt them to have the thinnest possible membrane in between each cell so that they can hold more honey, because you don't want thick big old walls because that can't hold a lot of honey. But if you have thin walls that are immediately adjacent to the next cell, then this cell will hold a lot of honey, and so will this one, but they'll have really thin walls. And when you sculpt, but that doesn't really answer how they're so symmetrical and perfect. Like, look at these rows, man. These rows are perfect, straight all the way across. And if you look at this center one, there's cells very equally on either side. That's pretty wild that they can do that. I'm not getting very good answers. I want better answers. There are only 3 geometrical figures with equal sides that can fit together on a flat surface without leaving gaps: equilateral triangles, squares, and hexagons. Okay, so these people are saying that this guy, the Roman Marcus Terentius, made a conjecture. He thought that the reason they were making them hexagonal is because a hexagonal honeycomb has the smallest total perimeter. So they're trying to conserve, bees are trying to conserve wax in their honeycomb production, because the less wax you use, the more real estate you have. Well, if you can use less wax in production of your real estate for honey storage, then you can store more honey with less wax. And if you're like physically having to make wax and peel it off your body, you probably want to use the least amount possible. So this is what he thought a long time ago, and I guess it turns out that he was correct. Bees are maximizing their wax usage, but that doesn't really explain how, like, I guess he's saying that this explains why the hexagonal shape came into being and why they are using hexagons versus triangles or squares. I feel like that's big picture thing. Like, oh, bees are bees know how to use wax economically, but that doesn't really explain like how they're doing it in these perfect rows and how they're making it look so good. Like just because you know they're trying to conserve wax doesn't mean that they know, oh, this is how you do it right here. Make it perfect like this. You know what I'm saying? Like look at this. It is wild. Like they're saying that wild hives will grow down. Will be built downwards, like they attach it at the top and start building it downwards, and it will follow the contours of the unnatural shape. But like, what the heck? Like they're still all like perfectly level. Look at these are like level to the ground, even though what they're attached to at the top is like super irregular. The more I look into this, the more intrigued I am, and the less I know. 8 a day? So if you're not familiar with how honeybees produce wax, it's a mixture of well, so initially the wax comes from some wax glands that the bees have on like their abdomen. So they secrete the wax from their wax glands. It builds up on the underside of their abdomen, and then they pull it off and chew it up, and then shape it into the shape they need it to go. So it's a mixture of saliva and like the wax gland material that they've secreted from the abdomen. So that's where the wax actually comes from. This is saying they do that 8 times a day. Holy crap, worker bees. Whoa. These bees right here are measuring the distance between the spaces by festooning. They're hanging in a chain. Look at that. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 bee lengths across. Like, what the heck? Bees are freaking wild, man. Interesting. So, okay, so there's two. So, bees make their honeycombs from wax, right? So, this the picture on the left over here is like a clean new one. But because it's wax is kind of sticky and it gets dirty. And so the longer the bees are walking on it with their dirty feet, the dirtier it gets. And you can see over here on the right is a dirty one. And so once it's too dirty, they just fill up the cells with wax. And they're like, yeah, don't use this part anymore. It's not clean. And so they fill it up with wax. Dang. I feel like it would be pretty easy to tell. Like that guy from the beginning was hypothesizing that the bees build cylindrical cells and then kind of sculpt them to be hexagonal, which would make sense. But I feel like if you are watching a bee make its hive, you could pretty easily deduce, like if that was the case. Like if you watched it make a circular one and then sculpt it to be hexagonal, would that not answer your question? I feel like if people haven't widely agreed on the answer, it must be more complicated than that. Wait, what is this thing? Oh, interesting. How do they build the cells in the first place? So it sounds like, I need to confirm this, but it sounds like they lay out the hexagonal pattern on the floor, or they kind of build out the base hexagonal pattern first and then kind of stack it up, build it out. I wonder if I could find a diagram that shows this. I had no idea how complicated this was going to be, and I have not got anywhere near answering that question. So they don't build it. What's going on in these pictures? No, I want to know how they're constructed. Like, how do they start? Okay, like I want to know, do bees, like in a wild hive, like I want to know in a wild hive, do they, when they first are attaching the honeycomb to the tree, it's like they start with one cell, they attach the first cell to the tree, and then they build three around it, right? They build around it in the, like, adding onto each side of the hexagon that is not facing the tree. And then, but do they build out like the whole cell? Do they build out one full cell and then do they build out another full cell after that? Or are they just like laying the groundwork for the whole hexagonal pattern and then building cells off of that as they go? Like, I don't understand. I feel like Farley's going to watch this and think I'm being intentionally obtuse. I'm not trying to be obtuse, I just want to know. All right, well, I wasn't able to answer the question. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have, but I would like to know. So if you know the answer, hit me up in the comments. Catch you next time. Peace.